Hi everyone and welcome to Book Boop. My name is Rachel and today I have a tag video for you. The tag I'm doing today is the No Disclaimers book tag, and I was tagged by Sarah over at Sarah the Dreamer. I will link her channel down below. Sarah, thank you so much for tagging me. I love it when I get tagged. It's really rare and I get so excited when I do. And I love doing tag videos. They are so much fun to do. So there are 8 different questions here that are about, I don't know, just No Disclaimers book tag. A lot of these questions kind of push towards salty answers. I'm not a very salty person, so I'm gonna try to be as salty as I can. So I'm gonna dish the tea. I'm wearing my saltiest t-shirt I could. It says "Not Today, Satan" on it. I know you can't read it right now, but that's what it says. So it's my saltiest t-shirt just to get me in the mood. So let's go ahead and start with some questions, shall we? So the very first question is, which trope or tropes in books annoy you the most? So there was only one trope I could think of that popped in my head right away, and that is love triangles. Personally, I detest them. I really don't like love triangles at all. They harken back so much to me to like the early 2000s. So whenever I read any books that have love triangles in them, it makes it feel dated. On top of that, I hate it when you've got the girl and then you got the 2 guys that are fighting over her. You've got the guy who's the soft boy. He's the sweet guy that like treats her really well. And then there's the bad boy, the one that's just like, he's so handsome, but he's just so mysterious, but he also isn't very nice. But somehow she's attracted to him and she feels pulled 2 different ways. Drives me crazy. It just harkens too much back to like Hunger Games and Twilight and just like these kind of like an older rite of passage in YA books. And I just don't like it. The recent thing that I read was a Splintered series by A.G. Howard. That is hardcore love triangle and is in your face. And I detested just the pull and tug of those relationships so much. I don't like love triangles. They're just not a fan. Second question is, which writer or writers do you feel are overrated or overhyped? Don't shoot the messenger. Personally, I feel like Cassandra Clare is. And that's just because I have tried to read her books. I tried the very first Mortal Instruments book. I think that's which one it was. It's whatever series she's writing that never seems to end. And I didn't like it. I DNF'd it. I just couldn't get into it. I also really hated the movie, which I've heard the movie comparatively is not that great. Even people that love the series didn't like the movie. But I thought the movie was dumb and I thought surely the book's better, and I tried it and I didn't like it, and I don't know, just the entire series, the premise of it sounded so interesting, but then whenever I tried to read it, I just didn't like it. So to me, I feel like Cassandra Clare is overhyped, and I feel like I don't think she really writes anything other than just that universe, which I guess if people really love it, go ahead and keep writing it. But I don't know. I don't see the appeal. Let's put it that way. Third question, least favorite books you've read since joining BookTube. So I would say be 2 different series that I've read this year that I wasn't a huge fan of. One of which was the Charlotte Holmes series by Brittany Cavallaro. I read the first 2 in that series and I hated them both. The reason I read both of them is because I had purchased them, hearing about them, thinking that they sounded like something I would love. It's gender-bent Sherlock Holmes. I love mysteries. It sounded interesting. Didn't enjoy it at all. Hated the characters. Plot was confusing. Really hated it. But I made myself read them both because I bought them and I paid for them, and then I very quickly donated them to the library so someone else could read them. Those books are very hyped. A lot of people really love them. Personally, I don't understand why. I hated them. To be perfectly frank, I hated them. Another thing that I read this year too, I read half of the 2 All the Boys I Loved Before series, or the first book and half the second one. I DNF'd the second one. Again, I just didn't like the characters. I got halfway through the second one. I was like, why am I still reading this? I don't care about the characters. I was getting so frustrated with the main character. I didn't like her because she was just so wishy-washy. She never seemed to be content with where she was in life, and she would finally get the guy, and then did something just land in my hair? Anyways, she would finally get the guy, and then she would start wandering, her eyes would wander, and she would be like, oh, this guy looks nice too. Anyways, didn't like either one of those series at all. I get people love them, both those series. There's a lot of people that love those. More power to you. I'm not trying to offend you, but I just didn't like them. All right, next question. Number 4, a terrible ending that ruined an otherwise quality book. So I couldn't think of a specific book, but I could think of a specific series. For me, that was the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. I loved the first book, thought it was great, very twisty-turny. Second book, didn't personally like it as much as the first, but it was still really good. Interesting plot, interesting world. It was fun. It was fun. Third book, it was so hyped. It was hyped in my mind. I was hoping it was going to be better than the second one and just bring the series back up. Couldn't wait to see how the series was going to end. And I didn't like it. And I don't really know anybody that really liked it that much. And I'm sad. I'm sad about it because I was excited to see how the series was going to end. I was excited to see what Stephanie Garber was going to do with it. And it just was not. I didn't like it. So to me, that was like the ending of that series was just a huge letdown to me, which was such a bummer because I thought it could have had a really, really cool ending. Number 5, which character or characters do you wish were not killed off? So obviously this is a very spoiler-like question. So I'm going with something that I feel like everybody knows, which is Harry Potter, because I feel like that's the safest series to talk about. If you haven't read Harry Potter or haven't seen the movies, then skip ahead until I talk about the next question. But I'm hopeful that everybody kind of knows the series, knows even whether you've read it or watched the movie, you know kind of what goes down. So the 7th book. There are a lot of deaths in that book. Some of them hurt my heart so much. Some of them I wish had not happened, such as Hedwig. Hedwig, his sweet pet owl is shot down, and then Dobby. I mean, I know it is the most heart-wrenching death, and I just, and Fred, and just basically any of the good guys that died in Deathly Hallows. Just bring them all back, please. I can't handle it. I get it. It needed to be dramatic. I get it. It's important for there to be things that happen, to be consequences with the battle, and it just still hurts my heart. All right, let's move on before I start to cry. Question number 6, what are some of your bookish pet peeves? All right, so I have a few. One of them is when you're in the middle of a dire situation in a book. You are running for your life. Things are happening. And all of a sudden, you think it's the perfect time to make out or talk about your relationship. It's a terrible time to do that. Nobody does that in real life. You're not in the middle of a battle and you start making out. Doesn't happen. As far as I know, it doesn't. So that drives me crazy. Just the worst timing to have an emotional moment or to have an argument about something that is so stupid that you're just like, this is not a good time for this. You could die stopping to talk about this right now. That's ridiculous. The other pet peeve I have is lack of communication. I hate it when books use lack of communication so much to where it makes me want to pull my hair out. What I mean is, if there is a lack of communication between two characters, and if they would just talk to each other for 5 minutes, the entire conflict in the book would be resolved. And they don't. And it drives me crazy. This is used in movies. This is used in TV shows. Usually it has to do in relationships. When a guy and a girl or whatever, they get into a fight, and it would be so easily resolved if they would just talk. Just even briefly. Not a very long engaged talking conversation. Just a brief talk to say, this is what went down, and it would fix everything. So that drives me crazy too. I feel like that's lazy. I feel like that's a lazy thing to do in books, is to have that be a driving factor in plot, is the lack of communication. I think it's unrealistic to me, and I think it's ridiculous. Anyways, so pet peeves, those are mine. All right, number 7, what are some books you feel should have more recognition? So some of these books for me, actually, let me get this one out. This is one that I read very, very recently, and I have hardly heard anything about it. I knew about it because it's an author that I really like, but I haven't heard anything about it since it came out. And that is Sweep, The Story of a Girl and Her Monster by Jonathan Osier. So this book, I just adored it. I waited too long to read it. It came out last year, and I really wanted to read it. And it took me forever to finally get to it. And once I did, I was like, why did I wait so long? This book is so good. I love it so much. Story is all about friendship, and it's heartwarming, and it's a perfect fall read, and it's just lovely. So I wish more people would read this one. Another thing too for me is our books that are by Jodi Lynn Anderson. I feel like she's an author that doesn't get a lot of recognition, and she's written a lot of books that honestly have kind of been some of my favorites, like My Diary from the Edge of the World, Midnight at the Electric. Those are two that I read last year that I absolutely adored, and they are wonderful books, and they are heartwarming and heart-wrenching, and they're just wonderful. So if you've not read anything by Jodi Lynn Anderson, please go check out her stuff, and just, there's some other books she's written too. They've all been lovely. So give her a chance if you haven't read her before. Okay, last question. What are your thoughts on censorship and banning books? So I don't necessarily agree with banning books. I don't necessarily agree with being for people to be told from someone else like what they are and are not allowed to read. That I don't necessarily agree with. Like if you don't agree with that book, then just don't read it. Like just don't read it. Anyways, but one of the things that does drive me crazy, and I guess this does kind of go along with censorship, and I think this for me is just because I'm a parent, but I do really wish that there would be more care taken in what is put in certain books in certain age levels. For example, I really love to read middle grade, and there's been times I've read some things in some middle grade books and I'm like, I think this is above the age that it's targeted to. Like there's some content in there that I feel like is too heavy or too dark to be in there. Even more so, even with YA. I mean, YA, obviously there's a lot of adults that read YA. I read YA. I'm in my 30s and I love reading YA. But again, sometimes there's some YA books that I read that are targeted towards teenagers, and there's content in there that I feel like is probably too much. This is mainly talking about middle grade though. I'm thinking more along the lines of kids in middle grade and those people reading those books. So that's mainly what I'm thinking of. So I guess that kind of goes along with censorship a little bit. I think just people taking more care. And again, that's also the parent. That's me having to make sure as my daughter grows up and as she reads, that I make sure I read the things that she's reading and I know what content she's ingesting. That's how I can control that as a parent. I just wish I didn't have to worry about it as much. Let's put it that way. So anyways, that's my thoughts on that. Very last thing is to tag somebody. So I'm going to tag Angie over at Literary Labors. Angie, you have been tagged. Also, if you would like to do this tag, please do it. I've tagged you as well. So you out there just going, this is a fun tag, I want to do it, do it. I tag you right there. On the side of the video over here is my logo. If you click on that, you can subscribe to my channel and follow me on my book journey. On this side of the video over here is a suggestion for another video if you want to watch another one right now. But thank you so much for watching. You rock, and don't forget to keep reading. Bye.